Welcome, everybody, to the final episode of season 1 of the Crazy People podcast. I'm Russ. This is Maurice. Hey, Maurice, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today? Did we have a fun episode?
Yeah, we laughed a lot during this episode. A lot.
That is true. That is true. We looked back at the first season, things that we did, things that we didn't do, guests that we had on, things that were funny, things that were very funny,
Oh, yeah.
and what is coming up next.
And a very special announcement at the end.
A very special announcement.
Yeah.
Something that you probably or maybe and hopefully have already seen what that special announcement would be about. And we talked serious for a few minutes there, right? About AI and stuff. I think that was interesting, like a little detour of our best of topics.
Yeah.
But this is what the crazy thing is all about. You never know what happens. So stay tuned, I guess. Watch it.
Absolutely.
Or listen to it. All right, here we go.
Because really, what could go wrong once you press record, right?
Exactly. What could go wrong? It's all got to be very perfect.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the final episode of season 1 of Crazy People Doing a Podcast. The Crazy People Podcast. I am Russ Brummel over there. The smarter and better looking guy is Maurice Hoffman.
Russ.
And so we come to the end of season 1, and we thought we'd kind of look back and maybe look ahead a little bit too.
Yeah, it's that time of year, right? While I'm wearing a Christmas sweater, it's that time of year to really look back at, what has happened, what have we achieved, the funny things that happened.
Where we have completely failed. Yeah.
Sorry?
Where we've completely failed, the nerdy stuff and all that. All the behind the scenes stuff too, yeah.
Some actual news, right? And so there's a lot of different topics that we actually want to talk about. But I want to talk about something that I think the funny stuff for a couple of people that really start off podcasting, especially in light of the in episode 20, we talked to Jonathan Reed, a professional when it comes to podcasting and everything. And in light of that, we thought about what could we do better? Is there anything that we could announce? And the funny thing is, no, we can't, because we don't know if we have the time to actually get it done. And then there's other things that we got rid of. Keyword is questionnaire. Russ, say something about it.
Yeah, that was actually so when we talked to Jonathan, because he is so good at what he does. He's been doing it for years, right? And you sort of think back, where are the things that we could have done better, or where's like whatever it was. And when we started off, like for the first couple episodes, we actually sent people a questionnaire before they came on. And
yes.
Yeah. And it was like, it was really involved, and it was like really good information. And then the problem is neither one of us would read it. So the guest would say like,
in all defense, I had it up on a second monitor.
Oh, okay. So
at least look at it like, where's the information? And
so you pretended to read it. I didn't even pretend to read it. That's what it was.
It was terrible.
Yeah. No, but like the guest would say, oh, as I said in my questionnaire, something, and we'd kind of go, okay.
Oh,
where is that?
Expecting us to talk about that now.
So we stopped sending out the questionnaire, which I guess that's an improvement, and also a what's the opposite of improvement? I don't know.
Yeah, we reduced the level of preparedness to a manageable amount for us.
Yeah, but I think one thing though I realized in doing it is all this creative stuff actually takes you more time than you think it's going to take you, right? Getting this set up and recording it and then editing it and all those kind of things and preparing for it. And it's just, you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, I'll get it done. And then you realize, wow, it just took a long time to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And our website that we have or had at this point, because we're finally gonna launch a new one.
Woo!
That was only supposed to be something for a couple of weeks before we shoot out the actual website. Luckily, we never announced it because that's something else that we learned is that introducing new things to the show is really hard because you also have to do it, you have to get it done, right? Not only do you need to do all the creative stuff that you already do for the show, but you also have to think of something new and how to improve it. I mean, we
Yep.
did quite a bit at the beginning, right? Where we our created a CI and everything that we do and unified it. But in creating a new website, that's harder than you think if that is not your day job.
Yeah, it was. I was actually really impressed that a brand new kind of startup podcast had like a corporate image standard and a logo and actually screens and things that we could actually edit together. But yeah, you do realize pretty quickly that every little thing takes more time than you think it's going to take to get it done, and then you want to do it right. Like we really wanted to not just sort of do a half a podcast. We wanted to have fun with it, but also do it well, right? So we're both a little bit that way.
And to be totally honest, the questionnaire also kind of died because we just eventually felt comfortable enough to just let it go and make it more of an discussion and just talk to people instead of asking them question and go from one question to the other. It became more interactive. I think that also helped the situation where we said like, okay, first of all, we're not reading the questionnaire or like 5 minutes prior. And second of all, it's not really aiding neither their setup because they already kind of feel that they know what is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Nor is it helping us because we are not reacting to the information that present us, but we are following a red line that we designed prior. Ideally, I think it's probably a mixture of both, where you are prepared and did your research, and a lot of times that actually works. But I think overall we've gotten much better when it comes to how do we lead the interviews and the flow through the interviews.
Yeah, one of the feedbacks that I get from people after they've been on the show, or just now, it's about every other week. I run into somebody who's listened to it and said, "Hey, I heard your podcast thing, whatever." And almost universally, everybody has the feedback of like, "I can't believe we talked about that. Like, you asked me about things, or I heard you talking about things that I just never hear anybody talk about." And I think part of that is that spontaneity where you say, "Hey, let me listen to the guest and understand where they are, and then think about where I am, and just ask a question like, hey, we're sitting down having coffee together, or whatever. We're just getting to know each other and hanging out. You can ask kind of a weird question sometime about, hey, what happened there, right? Or whatever it is, which actually then I think gives us a better podcast. It's certainly more fun for us to do, right? So
that's true. That's true. And also then talking to Jonathan about podcasting, because he is the absolute guru when it comes to that. It kind of, at least for me, and fun enough, it was in episode 21, right? It kind of settled me down like, okay, I'll just let it go, right? Just let it go. And yes, there are improvements that we can do, a lot of them actually. But the first and the main thing is to keep the main thing, and that is, let's try to be our authentic selves, and the chaos and the limited craziness that happens every now and then. That's just what it is. Like Russ not inviting me to an episode.
See, that's just a challenge, Maurice. That's I would love to say I did it on purpose, but yeah, we have sort of behind the scenes in a podcast, right? You have scheduling and you want to get everything on everybody's calendar so that it comes up and says, oh, here's the link to get in and you can record and everything. And we switched early on in the season. Maurice was scheduling it, and then later on I scheduled it. And I was on the episode with Jason Bay. A couple episodes ago. Yeah, 23. And if you guys have watched it or listened to it, Maurice is missing at the beginning. And I'm thinking to myself, Maurice is never late. Like, what's going on? Like, what? And so we're kind of, Jason and I, knew each other a couple of years ago, worked together a little bit. And so we kind of joked about it. And then we just kind of went on and talked about stuff. And Maurice joins, I don't know, 9 or 10 minutes in. What you don't know is that afterwards I went to the calendar and I go, oh, Maurice wasn't here because I didn't invite him at all. So, so I was texting Maurice like, dude, where are you? What's going on? And he has a life. So sorry, brother. I'm really
I
sorry
was
about
about to
that.
get ready to walk the dog, and while I was getting ready, I was looking at the text, and I was like, "Is he saying that the episode at the recording is right now?" Because you brought it up in a way where, in general, there could have been an episode, and that was rescheduled and so on. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's that happens sometimes." And then it actually dawned on me, like, hold up, wait.
You flip over the calendar, you go, "This, I got nothing here." And yeah, I'm sorry. I did not realize till afterward, but that's,
Well, I did, in
it's
all
what you realize
fairness,
though,
it
right?
happened the other way around too. It's just that I texted you minutes before, and our time difference always works in my favor when it comes to that because you already, or most of the time, you're already at the desk.
Yes.
So I kind of sneaked an hour and an hour and a half into your calendar. Hey, by the way, did you know we are recording in 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's kind of funny though, because I talk to people about like how we organize it, how we invite guests and kind of what we do. Because sometimes people are curious, like, how does that work? And I'm like, really, Maurice and I are friends. Like we've been friends for years and years and years. And so when one of us messes up, we're just, that's cool, whatever. It's like, fine. Like, let's go. Let's keep on going. And so when
Yeah.
we invite people on, it's like, hey, do you want to talk to this person or that person or whatever? And and we try to, I think, get an interesting diversity of guests, right, from different places and different people and stuff. But it's always just people like we're interested in talking to. It's never like, oh, somebody's on a book tour or whatever. It's just like, hey, I know this guy, I know this lady. Want to talk to him? What's going on, right? So it's
Yeah, that's why we have a tendency to have a lot of New York people and a lot of Kentucky people on there. And yeah, I'm actually the like diversity and the mix of people, and that is a big compliment to you, is really something that I'm very happy about because there's no one type of person that comes on other than they all have an interesting story to tell, right? And work in entirely different industries, come from different countries, are at different stages of their careers. And we have all of it, right? Beginning of the career, end of the career, boy, girl, everything, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that is something that I'm very, very happy about because that was an important topic to me at the beginning to have more diversity
yeah.
and
Even
or to
even
have
snuck in a couple
diversity
of
actually.
people. Yeah, even snuck in a couple of people from Europe, right? So
Yeah, we do.
yeah,
Yeah,
from
we
all
have
over the place.
actually have my mirror an American that lived in Germany but went back to the US. And which, by the way, Rich, Raz Smith, former football player,
Mhm.
episode 9 was definitely the craziest recording that we had because he was on his phone.
Yeah.
The connection wasn't always great. And then Raz is just from a personality perspective because he does 1,000 things. And I've been knowing him since the early 90s,
Yeah.
right? And I have so much history with him. So we were bouncing back and forth through decades of stuff that we did together, or that I know that he did and he knew that I did. And poor Russ was just strapping in and in his ride of what the heck is going on. And then you guys have some not
That
immediate, but
yeah. It's like
parallel
a yeah.
universe kind of relationship too.
Yeah, see, I was near him before you were, right? As we discovered in the middle of discussing it, that he was playing for, I guess, Clemson, and I went to Penn
Yeah.
State, and I was at the game when he was playing at Penn State and stuff. So we were kind of in the same stadium together back in the 80s and stuff, which is like these small world moments kind of happen all the time. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you were there too, right? It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful stuff, but it is a little trippy when it happens and you go, what? Where did that come from? So
Yeah, and I learned of musicians that he worked with that I worked with too,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that we had that in common too. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's totally crazy. But yeah, from a recording perspective alone, first of all, I think that was the longest episode by far
Yeah. Yeah.
because there it wasn't. I edited that episode. It was a nightmare to cut it down because there was so much interesting stuff. I think
Yeah.
I cut it down. I cut down a half an hour from the
Yeah.
original, but it was still way over an hour, I think.
Yeah. But Raz has done, like you said, 1,000 really interesting things. So it's tough to know
Yeah.
what do you cut out? It's like something's only 9.5 out of 10 on a scale of interesting. You have to cut that out. That's terrible. So
Yeah, absolutely. Something else where we're talking about what really came up, it came up a lot, is your bourbon connection with people, right? I mean, we had it with Austin.
hmm
We had it with Chris. We had it with Jeff. Who else? I think who else was it with?
Yeah, probably mentioned it with Bo. We
Probably.
uh we might have mentioned it with Tarun when he was on. See, the thing is, if you ever watch the podcast, you'll realize that I live right outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and I believe it's state law or something. You have to talk about bourbon. I don't know what it is. No, actually, when I moved out here about 20 years ago, I just said, well, let's try the local thing, and bourbon has gotten popular since then. But this for me, it was just this is a thing that you do with folks here in town. This is a thing that we do, a thing we talk about. So it's
Yeah, I think you placed one of the bourbon right there in the background.
yeah,
Yeah, the
back over here.
crazy
Yeah,
horses, right?
yeah. That's
Yeah.
our is our first guest. Yeah, Chris
Chris Widmar.
Weedmar, who
Yeah,
runs the Party Horses Project. Who, if you follow Instagram, you follow them on Instagram, you see that they're actually coming out with a Party Horse private labeled bourbon sometime in the next time, a month
nice.
or so. So maybe by the time this episode is out, you're listening to it, maybe it'll be on a shelf near you. But those guys are, they're all we're in Kentucky. We're bourbon people. That's what happens.
Absolutely, and that is just how it has to be at times. So, what is from your perspective? What was the funniest moment that you can remember while I'm taking my eye out?
Other than not inviting you to one of the recordings.
Other than not inviting me, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I really think
Or favorite
Helena,
moment. Let's
yeah,
put it that way. It doesn't have to be.
Helena Ettingen, she told the story about how she and her co-founder like took a little bit of a break from their startup accelerator and they went like down to Mexico and they ended up in the center of a giant party and they were just trying to get to sleep and they were just trying to have meetings. They were just trying to like relax and I was like, this is, it's another one of those, we have them every now and then, like sort of a perfect storm moment where
Yeah.
you're like, it's just, and it was just, I feel so bad for her because she was like, yeah, we'll just sneak away. And we have like this little break where we can relax. And they could not at all. It was a disaster. So this is just such a great story.
Yeah, that's true.
What
That's
about
true.
you?
For me, I actually have to think about it. I definitely like Siobhan because she was so much energy. You see, she had so much energy, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then, I mean, we had it in the best of in the last episode,
Yep.
episode 24. Um, Such a crazy story where she went through a nightmare right when she was pregnant with her child,
Yep.
had the biggest customer ever, and then found out that something in her back end wasn't working, and she needed
Yep.
to change the vendor for that. And then her colleague showed up, her co-founder showed up and said, "Yeah, we can just do it ourselves." And the face that she even then in the interview made when she
Yeah.
talked about it was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?"
Yeah, you could see on her face, even though the story had happened years before, she was still had a little bit of like, oh no, oh
Yeah,
no,
there was still
oh
some
yeah,
PTSD
yeah. There
involved.
was a
Like,
little bit.
yeah, that was definitely crazy. No, I love that interview. And something else that I definitely loved, and it's a funny thing because I have to actually look it up because something that nobody knows, and unless I extremely bad with names. So I always need to write down the name of the person because
I'm Russ. I'm
otherwise,
Russ, by the way. So
what?
just,
No, I have it down there. But otherwise, especially at the beginning, I may or may not forget the name.
yeah,
Somebody says it, but it doesn't get to me. Anyway, so Chikari was definitely my favorite story of all
yeah.
of them.
Oh yeah,
That's also why he made it into best of. It's just the lightheartedness that he went out with, even though his background was everything but lighthearted.
yeah.
But then bringing up his desk is, I think that's fantastic, right? I loved everything about him.
Oh yeah.
So how do you know
Especially,
him?
um, I got to go talk to him again because I love my desk. But but hearing about just like I knew a little bit going into the interview. I kind of had heard a little bit about his background and sort of how he grew up, and just not very much. He didn't talk about it very much, but just the obstacles he had to overcome to do that, and just you're right, the positive energy. The he wants to be a role model, and he's just a young guy. I guess
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what he does. But yeah, we gotta get him on season 2
Oh, absolutely. He
and
needs to
follow
come
up and
back.
see where the best is because he was talking about. I got excited. He was talking about putting rockets on it, and then he was like, "No, I'm not going to put rockets on it." Like, oh, come on, man.
Let it hover.
Yeah,
Let it hover. I
hover
want to see it
besk.
hover. The hover
Yeah,
desk. Yeah. I want to see that. I want to see that happening definitely. Yeah, so no, he's definitely somebody that I think is fantastic, that I love the story about. We learned a lot about each other.
yeah,
Personally, yeah, well, what I learned about myself, let's put it that way. When I said each other is us personally, I learned a lot about my sales self and how to prepare myself for a job that I would take just weeks later in terms of sales engagements and so on. What is a story that where you learned something for yourself or about yourself in a story?
I think there's two things. There's two things. Um, Number one, I like to talk. I'm okay at talking, but as we've done the podcast, I spend more time listening than I do talking and asking questions, anything else, which has been great for me. There's sometimes when I just sit here and I'm like, that was fantastic. I'm like a live fan of the podcast. Right? I get to listen to it as it happens. I don't have to do anything. I'm just here, which is super cool. Um, but the other thing was that when you talk to people, um, you've had difficulties in your life. I've had difficulties in my life, and then you talk to people who like literally almost lost their life, or came from just horrendous backgrounds, or went through horrendous things in the workplace, or all kinds of stuff, and you go like, huh. We all have that. Like it's a thing we all have together, and we don't talk about a lot. Like nobody wants to be the weakling or whatever. Um,
Yeah,
but when you share that stuff, it's actually, oh yeah, we're kind of all in this together. That's an okay place to be. And I think
yeah,
being able to talk about that more, I think, has come out. I learned that a little bit about myself. That it's okay. It's okay to go like, oh yeah, here's a little bit of the ugliness. Okay, it's all right. So
yeah. And I think that's also how some of the questions that we ask
yeah,
came about, right? My favorite question is the Sunday night honesty moment, right? The moment where there's nobody is lying to themselves Sunday night when they lie in bed awake, right? That is where everybody's honest to themselves and
yeah,
everybody's like freaking out, right? That is to know that other people go through the same thing because nobody ever said, yeah, what are you talking about? I don't have this, right? I don't
yep,
have this midnight honesty
yep,
Sunday
yeah.
nights.
Yeah, everybody's got a I can't sleep story, right? Everybody's got a moment where they're just like, oh no.
Yeah,
And we had some of them that were like, oh no, bad. And some of them were like, oh no, good. Right. We had a couple
yeah,
of people who were like, we have the biggest opportunity and how do we make this happen now? Right. And some people are like, oh no, it's all going to fall apart. How do we keep it from falling apart? Right. So,
yeah. So
but
what's your
yeah,
moment? A positive one.
um, So I'm a big fan. I'm drinking right now IQ Joe coffee. But yeah, we had IQ Bar, and their story about like we can't get these stupid bars to wrap properly. We just got a gigantic mega order. Like this is going to make our business, yay! And then it's like it's not working on the manufacturing line. But the sort of the tenaciousness that really the team had, but also sort of led by the founder and stuff.
Well,
Was Will, and getting that like we're going to get through it. And then we talked to Will. I think it was a couple of weeks after we talked to Siobhan and her story of like, yeah, we're going to get through it. I was like, we got a theme of like, but just really positive. Like
yeah.
we're going to do what it takes to get through it, even when it looks like the wheels are coming off the bus. What about for you?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I gotta go back to Siobhan, but also because I worked a lot with him, is Bo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the resilience and the grit that he had putting up his company against all the odds, right? Also with two little kids and everything that went on for him. It's just pushing out a company in a very competitive environment, like talent management and everything, interims management and so on. That is a very competitive environment, and yet he's doing it. He's been doing it for, is it 4 or 5 years by now?
Yeah,
And he's successful with it, and I think that's an amazing, right? And that's something that is really not appreciated enough. Just
yeah,
like when Aaron talked about his kind of profile, I think he used to be a teacher in one
yep,
moment and did other things. These zigzag lines, and that's something that I took away. These zigzag lines in people's careers, I think we only had one person. We only had Andres,
mm,
episode 14,
yeah,
who studied a thing, worked in a thing, and then created his business out of that knowledge, coming and did another study, did his MBA, I think, and then created a business.
yeah,
And that was as straight line as we ever had on a show. Everybody else was going back
yep.
and forth like crazy, right?
Yeah, which was actually really cool because you had people who are like Jeff Bajorek, right? Who was like, I worked in a hospital and then I went into sales and then I started my own business. Right? You have
Yeah,
all these
being a
kind of
sales
people.
guru.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
that's the thing is you have people who are like they just ended up doing something, just fell in love with it, and then took it over, right? People went from big corporate jobs to startups. People who grew
exactly.
startups and big, and people who switch careers again and stuff. That
Yeah.
zigzag back and forth was that was the red thread between all of the stories, or most of the stories this year. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of them, right? This personal motivation to, because they either love the topic
yeah,
or they just saw a need, like you mentioned, Helena, saw a need in a topic where it's like, no, there's an issue. We need to solve this, right?
yeah.
That is really, really fascinating. Um, hard cut. Hard cut.
Cut. Okay, what?
I want to talk about where do you see, because we talked about Jeff just now,
Hmm.
where do you see the future for sales and marketing? Because we talked a little bit about that before the show, and the changes that are to be expected in that area.
Yeah, I think there's probably sales will continue to divide up. I think that's what'll happen. And marketing probably too. So you'll have some fields where having a human being sell you a thing is going to be very important. Getting hands-on experience with whatever that thing is, some products and stuff. And so having a human help you do that is going to be imperative. But I don't know how it is in Germany, but here in the US, you can order a car online and a truck will come and bring it to your house. And it's a car. It's not even like I'm ordering a Matchbox. It's like a real physical car will show up at my
Yes.
house a few days later and the payment's done and everything's done. And I don't even have to go talk to a human. It just shows up, right? So I think we'll see a lot more automation happening around sales and around marketing as AI gets smarter and better and easier, and I don't have to talk to a human. I can get the thing done by talking to a machine to get the quick answer. But then I think like a lot of things, like fast food, restaurants, right? Very commodity, like, okay, I'm hungry, here's food. And then you have a high-end restaurant where people like will stand in line for it and make reservations months in advance. I think that kind of stuff's going to happen with sales and marketing. You'll have the commodity things that'll get automated and then just be like, well, if this is fast and easy, I'll do it. And then you'll have the boutique kind of experiences, the white glove kind of experiences. Like, no, I really want somebody to help me through this. I think they're going to bifurcate, I think is the word. What about you?
I think it's the same. And actually, if you are to look at a person that actually does marketing and does sales, I think if you don't have a programming or a technical background,
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard to stay within sales, at least in certain industries, because there's so much programming going on, there's so much automation going on already, and it's been like that for a few years by now. But now with AI, copywriting, and if you don't want to have it on a top tier level because you are, I don't know, Cadillac or Mercedes-Benz or Rolls-Royce, to just name car brands at this moment. Yeah. If you're not in that super top tier, it's not necessary anymore, because what you get is really in the 80-20 Pareto sense. The 80% you can get fully automated and get there really quickly.
Yep.
So that even somebody like me can do graphics and artwork in a hot second, right? That's why what you said at the beginning, right? Where do we have our artwork from, right? And that's not even AI. It's just a stupid little platform. And I don't mean it's stupid in a negative, because it's fantastic, right? I do all my stuff in Canva.
Yep.
And this is not sponsored, obviously.
Yeah, we need an ad or something in there.
Sorry?
We need an ad or something. Buy Canva. Yeah, because I use it too. But they, like a lot of other people, they've started to introduce AI, right? Tell it a little bit about the kind of thing you want, and it'll give you back the kinds of things that it thinks you need.
I think we talked to Christoph about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
We had an AI episode there.
Yeah. More in season 2. We'll have to invite some AI people on in season 2.
Yeah, we need more AI people on there.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's going to be one of the challenges, right? How do you stay relevant as a marketing and then as a salesperson if you work in a certain environment? How do you stay relevant in there? How do you have to upskill yourself so that you still have a job in 10 years? 10 years, 5 years, right?
10 weeks.
10 weeks, yeah. In 5 years, the latest, right? Because I think that technical know-how will be required, not everywhere, right? But for software products or many of those products, I think that's definitely a requirement.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I think is going to happen across a lot of jobs, sales and marketing for sure, it's going to happen in, but even other things, even engineering and stuff. We have gone through a cycle over the last 20 years maybe where things have become more specialized. Like people have trained into narrow specialties, and people are now starting to find with AI tools and automation, all this kind of stuff, that having a more generalist mindset is actually more productive. And it's getting more and more productive. There's still people who know how to program the controller for the engine in your car. We're talking a lot about cars this episode, I guess, but there's people who know that like specific little niche skill. But 5 years from now, it's going to be somebody who knows how to talk to the computer and manage the data and sort of synchronize all that so they can get the best performance or the best mileage or the best energy usage, whatever it is. And having a bunch of skills around that, and really in sales and marketing, it's going to be the same thing. How do I really help my customer understand the landscape, not just to buy my product, but understand why this is even a thing you should be doing.
Yeah.
Right? How do I, if I'm a marketer, how do I talk to people who are not in my traditional market, but really are emerging to be my best customers? I just don't know it yet. So how do I find that out? How do I figure those people out? How do I go talk to them if I've never talked to them before? Right.
Yeah.
I think as the landscape changes, that kind of generalist idea, like that's awesome that you're a great cold caller or you're really good at following up, but you need these 20 other broad skills around it, technology skills, marketplace understanding, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I think to
absolutely.
succeed. So, which I came up as a generalist, so maybe I'm biased toward that. But that's this is my thought anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, I see a shift definitely where different things are needed, different things are required. Um, I personally, and that's why I brought up, I personally definitely work on learning to program a bit
Mm-hmm.
more, learning more about AI, not just as a user, but also as somebody who's like a step further behind the lines or two. That's going to be interesting to really figure out how that can impact the marketing in the sales area, right? And also because in the data science direction, and that is the direction that I like, is how do you find the common points, the common the commonalities between the different people that buy a
Mm-hmm.
product from you. And what are those points actually? Because it might not be something that is so obvious, right? I remember from one person close to me that they did a research and did a 360-degree profile of their customers, and it turned out that everybody that was buying a certain gardening magazine would be a super customer for them. So they started advertising in
Yeah.
that magazine, right? But that's not something that is obvious.
Yep.
What does one product have to do with gardening that is, so how do you really learn to analyze that, gather the data,
Mm-hmm.
and then analyze the data, right?
Yeah. And that's a place where I think AI and really understanding the guts of AI, not just as a high level user, but understanding what's there and understanding how to make it dance for you. I think the way you want it to dance, right, is going to be helpful because the data exists, right? You can think of it, you can gather it up, and AI is going to help you do it. But if you don't know what questions to ask your artificial intelligence assistant, you're not going to get the right answers. So you've got
No.
to you got to be able to kind of understand what it's doing and think outside the box and then react to it. I think the thing that I'm seeing, I've been doing a lot more writing lately, and sort of honing my writing skills by bouncing stuff off of the AI
Yeah.
and saying, "Hey, I have these three ideas. Hey, what about this?" And I throw some stuff out and say, how would you improve this, or how would you make this, better or tighter or whatever? And you have this huge data set of language that's been stored in these AIs,
Yeah.
but you've got to know how to ask it the questions. If you don't know how to ask it the questions, you can't get
Yeah.
anything out of it, right? So, and I think the thing I've been warning people against recently is lazy AI, which is you just go and you do a thing with AI and you take whatever answer it gives you and you spit it out. Like, don't do that. No, come on. It's a tool. Like,
Yeah.
but you also have other 20 tools in your toolbox. So use all the tools. Don't just grab one tool and do it. So
Yeah. Don't be dependent on one tool. And you
yeah.
still have to think, right?
Yep. Yep.
AI doesn't take all the thinking away from you. It
Yeah.
just allows you to accelerate everything that you do and really put it in a broader context. But you still have to ask the right questions. If that's not happening, it's not going to happen. Much like our website, by the way.
Yes.
Another hard cut.
Let's ask the right question. What about our website, Maurice?
We
Hey,
do
Chat
have a
Maurice,
new
what about our
website.
website?
We do have a new website. And luckily, or ideally, you will already have seen the new website if you are watching this episode, because we are launching the new website with this episode, actually. And that is the funny thing, again, with announcements. We're not announcing anything that is not already done, production ready. We have a new website. It's a bit easier to click around in the website, and it's also easier for us to put up the content. I think it looks a bit better, and you have all the channels where you can really enjoy our episodes through right there with every episode. So all the different podcast channels. YouTube is kind of the obvious one, but you can watch it right there on the page already. You don't have to jump over to YouTube. You can, because it's fully embedded. And I think that should be much fun. So let us know how you like it. You can now leave comments. Exactly. That's another thing.
There you go. Yeah.
Becoming more interactive. You can leave comments underneath every show. And we're going to do some of the typical stuff where we say, hey, subscribe and leave comments and likes, and because we want to grow this little crazy podcast of ours. And for that, we need to reach more people, right? So that we get better guests and more interesting guests, even more interesting guests, more diversity in the guests. And but for that, people need to see and hear about us.
So what I hear you saying, Maurice, is that everybody listening and watching this should set the homepage on all their browsers in their office to the Crazy People podcast, and then go to their local computer store and do the same thing. crazy-people-podcast.com.
Yes. And wherever they are, just play an episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Send it to a friend. Yeah.
Exactly. Share.
Yeah.
Right. And funny thing is, that's actually what I did one time. Is I went to a kind of like a Best Buy type store here in Germany, and they had Bluetooth speakers. And they had one where they said it's the loudest Bluetooth speaker ever. And I picked up, and that was still when I was still doing the hip hop music show. And I've just interviewed somebody where I knew it was the nastiest piece of hip hop that was ever there.
Yeah.
And I connected to that speaker, and I realized, first of all, it allowed me to connect to it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Then I stepped away for a good 5-6 aisles, and I cranked it all the way up. And then the people, train your salespeople, by the way, they didn't know how the speaker worked. Because it was on battery. It had a battery inside, so they just unplugged it, and it would keep working. So I just switched music, and I did all kinds of stuff. And I did that for a good 10, 15 minutes. Because they also couldn't bring the speaker. They couldn't just take the speaker away because the security plug was connected.
Still attached,
Nobody had the key. So they didn't know how to switch it off. And that was so hilarious. I played the hip-hop song. I played Christmas songs, which doesn't sound funny now, but it was July, right?
There you go.
And
so DJ Maurice taking over the computer store. It's nice.
Yeah, that's happened when I was much younger than now. It's not young enough for it to be okay, but it's just my mischief stand-up comedy nature.
There you go.
that happened. But yeah, we have a new website.
Creativity. Nice.
We have a new website, yeah. So when are we back?
The end of January 2024, right? The 30th of January will be episode number 1 of season 2. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes.
Season 2 will be more of all the stuff you love and less of the stuff you don't love. Promise. So like and comment, tell us the things that you like and you don't like, so we can actually live up to that promise.
Exactly. And there are going to be some surprises. And who knows, maybe one of us is missing. Maybe not.
Maybe I'll remember to invite you to all the episodes next season.
Yeah. And just because it's funny, we have one guest, and I'm just going to call him John.
Okay.
That was supposed to be with us at the very beginning in one of the very early episodes. And we talked to him like 15 times at least about joining as a guest. So now I'm going to put him out there. Hey, John, come on as a guest. Damn it. It's about time.
And now season 2 will be everybody named John, the whole season. So there we go. Or maybe not. We'll see what happens.
Well, maybe not. Who knows? But until then, and if you watch us in December 23, we wish you all the best for the holidays, whatever
Absolutely.
it is you celebrate. We are right there with you. Enjoy the time. Enjoy the time with your family, because it's not for certain. It's not guaranteed that we are going to spend that time. And hopefully, you're going to join us again next year. January 30th is when we kick it off. Yeah, thank you very much for spending the time with us.